In one of his most tender verses, Irish priest and poet John O'Donoghue wrote these words: "May you see the reflection of your life's beauty and kindness in all the tears that flow for you." I think that's fitting for this moment, when we have viewed just a snippet of a remarkable life. Today we gather to honor Charlie, our dear Charlie, whose life was surely marked by beauty and kindness, was it not? I'm Kim McCurley. I'm the pastor at Bethany Church. I'm here to celebrate with you, to remember and to honor Charlie. I'm here with you to give thanks for a life that was full and rich and lovely and expansive. I'm here as you are, to lend support to Charlie's family, that they may know the comfort of your care. I'm here like you because of Charlie. So welcome, one and all, those who fill this hall to overflowing, those who join us from across the planet through cyberspace. It is good to be together, to celebrate one we love. I have the pleasure of beginning the time of remembrance. I was asked if I would share a few thoughts about Charlie and the church. That highlight reel goes back more than 40 years, 46 years to be precise. He became a member, he and Becky, members of Bethany Church, in December of 1977. I have experienced only the last decade, but that alone could fill volumes of stories and special moments. I'll be brief as that is possible for me. Occupational hazard sometimes. But I want to start by saying something about trees, specifically about the giant California redwood tree. Last March, 2 weeks after Charlie died, we had a brief time of remembrance on a Sunday morning at Bethany Church. On that day, I talked about those huge trees, which can grow to a height of 400 feet and can be more than 20 feet around at their base. What's fascinating to me about those massive trees is that they have very shallow roots. It is not their depth, but their width, their breadth that gives them strength. Those intertwine. intertwine. They can even fuse together. They form communities. They live in the embrace of the other. Redwoods do not survive alone. Not ever. It's their connectedness that makes them strong. Strong enough to withstand even the fiercest of storms. You see why Charlie comes to mind? But there's more. A fact that is especially poignant now that Charlie is no longer with us. As a redwood tree dies, the nutrients it has stored up are released back into the community through the roots, nourishing other trees. New sprouts spring up. The tree that is no more continues to sustain. Just like Charlie. a man of kindness and beauty, a giant among humans. And I want to give a brief mention to just one way that Charlie built and nourished and sustained community through Bethany Church. It is one of many, but it is the one which gave Charlie a deep sense of joy in the last several years. I speak about the Bethany Loft, an apartment on the second floor of Bethany House across the street that serves now as temporary emergency housing. The loft exists because of Charlie, because he could no longer abide the notion of neighbors without adequate housing who were sleeping in the laundromat. When most of our faith communities in and around Randolph had space, much more suitable space, that could be used to shelter our neighbors. And Charlie took it upon himself to tell those faith communities just that. That letter was a corker. It was December of 2020, just before Christmas. And in the spring of 2021, we opened the loft at Bethany. Charlie's righteous indignation moved mountains. It convicted us. St. John's Episcopal Church followed sometime later, making space in their fellowship hall for overnight guests. A couple of other faith communities are supporting the effort. It is a start. Much more is needed. A group of community partners still works to find more space. It is hard going, but we persist because of Charlie. Charlie was quite sure that temporary housing, even if only a Band-Aid, would make a difference in the lives of our neighbors. A safe, warm place to stay, yes, but just as important, the knowledge that there were neighbors who cared. Charlie almost single-handedly ran the loft. Every day, every hour, he could be counted on to answer the phone, his home phone, and respond to someone in need. When he wasn't there, which happened occasionally, Becky would quip, "Well, Charlie's not here, he's out saving the world." But she'd take a message and try to track him down, which was no small thing. Charlie would drop whatever he was doing as quickly as he could so that he could respond. Charlie knew the loft would be a good thing. I think what Charlie did not expect was the impact it would have on him. In a way, it kind of saved him too. The stories broke his huge heart wide open. Their pain gutted him. Their plight angered him, and their resilience humbled him. As heartbreaking as it could be, though, it was a source of joy to Charlie. Not happiness, but joy. Now, Charlie surely knew plenty of both happiness and joy, but at the loft, it was joy. That feeling that radiates from in, that fills every pore with a sense of serenity and calm. A feeling that brings a smile more to the inside than the out. Charlie lived a deep and meaningful joy in so many ways. He was fond of singing the song, "This Joy I Have," which we will sing a bit later. He sang it on the steps in the church to the delight of children, and he sometimes started to sing it when a meeting was at an impasse, when conversation got tense. And sometimes he sang it when he thought no one was listening. This joy I have, the world didn't give it to me. Charlie's joy was ever present. Let's pray that Charlie's joy will be present with us too. I was asked by the McMeekin family to choose a Mary Oliver poem to share with you today. The one I have chosen is entitled Mysteries, Yes. Truly, we live with mysteries too marvelous to be understood. How grass can be nourishing in the mouths of lambs, how rivers and stones are forever in allegiance with gravity, while we ourselves dream of rising. How two hands touch, and the bonds will never be broken. How people come from delight or the scars of damage to the comfort of a poem. Let me keep my distance always from those who think they have all the answers. Let me keep company always with those who say, look, and laugh in astonishment and bow their heads. Bless you, Charlie. Bless you in the mystery and the magic. In the wonder and in the welcome. In the courage and the commitment, the faith and the friendship and the lavish love that was you. Dear Charlie, the tender tendrils of your heart drew us in and held us tight. You entwined around us your redwood roots with all of ours. You have shaped us and strengthened us, and you nourish us still, that we might do the same for others. And bless you, McMeekin family. His dearest treasure, source of his deepest joy. He loved you so. May you know the comfort of community. And may you be fed by the nourishment that Charlie still and always pours into your hearts. Here's to Charlie, a giant among humans for sure. Blessed be. Now I invite Charlie's brother Jim to share some family memories. Thank you,
Hello, everybody. Let me start by thanking everybody for coming. It's so nice. It's going to be, well, I will say, I did get advice from Cousin David, who said, a speech that is longer is always better, just so you know. So And Hannah said I had a minute for every year I knew Charlie. So you may want to get comfortable because this is going to be a while. So, and then I shouldn't leave out my cousin Mary, who offered to do some interpretive dancing while I spoke, which would have at least made it so it was less uncomfortable for me. So, as most of you may know, we grew up in Ohio. I did come across this quote, which I thought was pretty cool. If I was giving a young man advice as to how he might succeed in life, I would say to him, pick out a good father and mother and begin life in Ohio. So that was from Wilbur Wright of the Wright brothers. So it has nothing to do with this, of course, but I will say, I do think that one of Charlie's traits and qualities is he always maintained kind of the Midwestern straightforwardness that something needed to be approached, he would do it. He was, just an open guy. And so, he was very, obviously, we were very different, but he was very influential, obviously, to me and our younger brother, as well as some of my good friends. One friend went into music, although he was ultimately not successful, but he went into music because he had heard Charlie playing a James Taylor record, and then they started talking about that, and then the rest was history. Although he ended up with a good career. It wasn't that he's not homeless or anything, So then, obviously you mature, I lived in Michigan and then Montana, so you don't get together that often. When we were, Kathy and I were back in Ohio, as was Charlie. Our dad was in an extended hospital stay, and it was Mother's Day. I'm wearing this tie in honor of Charlie. As many of you know, he was quite the clothes horse. And so it's Mother's Day, and we had all said we'd go to church with Mom. And so we're waiting by the car for Charlie, and he comes out, and he's got rumpled pants on, Birkenstocks, I'm not sure if he had socks on or not, a checkered flannel shirt, and a fish tie. So Mom says, gosh, Charlie, the Presbyterian church, I know it used to be kind of formal, but it's less formal now, and you don't have to get dressed up. And of course he's like, no, I don't care, I'm good. And they go this dance for a minute or so, and finally she says, Charlie, you're not getting it. Take the tie off. So of course he did, and he was, that's just Charlie. So, but for, all through the years, he obviously has had close relationships with many people here. He, I've always admired his teaching, his interactions. He was so proud of his kids. He was proud of the fact that Becky would put up with him, which I thought was pretty cool because he didn't end up moving back with me or anything. And, even in his working life, in his retirement life, in dealing with the loft, the laundromat, all of his interactions, I always considered him George Bailey, the richest guy in town. Thanks.
Thank you, Jim. My name is Isaac Eddy, and Charlie was my teacher and my drama director and my self-claimed godfather. In 1992, when I was 13, Charlie drove Jesse and some of our other best friends to see Bram Stoker's Dracula in Montpelier, and we were terrified. And driving back, he turned the headlights off. Vassar, don't do that, ever. Charlie taught me how to frame stories. My best memories with him are when I was 11 or 13 or 16 or 18, talking about a story from a play or a book, talking about how they led the audience along and what we didn't know until that incredible moment when we all knew everything together. He would milk that moment in his own stories. Before the punchline, he would pause, put his hand on my shoulder, his nose faintly whistling while he breathed, and his other hand on his belly. And then his solemn face would crack into a smile and deliver the goods with his husky laugh. There's a catharsis at the end of a story, a release of tension when we finally know everything together. And I think that's why Charlie loves stories in theater and literature so much, because of how they bring us together. Mini community making in real time. My specific memory of these conversations is when I was in 9th grade, waiting in Bethany Church for Sounding Joy choir rehearsal to finish. I feel like a quarter of my life was waiting for Sounding Joy rehearsal to finish. And Charlie was in the kitchen when he was supposed to be in rehearsal, making a cup of coffee, but talking passionately to me about English class. And without looking, he opened the kitchen drawer and pulled out a potato peeler and stirred in the creamer into the coffee with the handle. It didn't matter how many hands had been on that handle, the story was more important. He also listened deeply. I learned to be careful about the words that I chose to say because they mattered, because I mattered. Charlie also taught me how to deal with stage fright. He helped me contextualize what I was actually afraid of. I was afraid because I cared so much about the work that we put into the shows. And this caring was a gift, he said, not a hindrance. And I share this with my students in class, in each class that I teach, and I think about it still almost every day. My best times in junior high and high school were doing plays with my best friends, directed by Shosh Borchard and Charlie, and we watched them work together, laughing, arguing, fully committing to collaboration, caring deeply about each other, and caring deeply about the process, each stage of the process. And it was fun, and it was also really important. And to be able to hold those two things, just try it. It's really a delicate navigation, and he did it so well again and again and again. He was a theater artist, a writer, a teacher, a community activist, but mostly to me, he was someone who created spaces where we could all fully commit, be heard, and be proud of our work together. And to get there, if we have to stir coffee with the handle of a communal potato peeler, so be it. One last story. I wasn't here for this, but I always heard about it. There was a joke that back in the day, Charlie looked like Garrison Keillor. And apparently there was a time when Garrison was performing in Middlebury, and Charlie was there getting lunch, and someone came up to Charlie and was like, excuse me, I don't mean to bother you, but I'm just such a fan of your show. And Charlie paused and looked at them and then said, thank you so much. Next, we're gonna hear from another Titan in education, Roger Ennis.
Hi, everybody. Somewhere along about the middle of the 1970s, a piece of literature made the rounds in popular society. It was written a whole lot earlier, 1927 as a matter of fact, but the tumult and the confusion and the chaos and the anger and the hatred of that period of time, the middle 70s and late 60s, made it particularly poignant in trying to figure out how to live a decent life. The poem was called The Desiderata, and it began with the words, some of you know, "Go placidly amidst the noise and the haste." Now, let's just have a little show of hands of everybody who knows that poem or knows of that poem or has heard it. Aha. The children of the dawning of the age of Aquarius. Somewhere about the same time, middle of the 1970s, this community was blessed by the arrival of quite a number of young professionals from every imaginable walk of life: theater, drama, education, clergy, medicine, carpentry, blacksmithing. I mean, the list goes on and on. And the beauty of it was that many of these people were gifted not in just one area, but several. And so they created a kind of a cross culture here in this town, in this community in central Vermont. Obviously, quite a few of them moved on, but quite a few of them decided to stay here and make their lives here and raise their children here. Two of those people were Charlie and Becky McMeekin, and thus they became two of my oldest friends. I don't mean that they are old. I mean, I knew them the longest time. From the beginning of my friendship with Charlie, I was impressed by a characteristic that has already been mentioned here. I give it a different name: equanimity, calmness, the ability to believe and move in the belief that things are going to work out okay. And it dawns on me that Charlie couldn't have done the stuff that he did, especially in drama. My goodness, putting on a complete summer production in a few weeks, couldn't have done that without the belief that in the end everything's going to work out okay. I have three brief stories, three brief anecdotes to illustrate what I mean. Shortly after Charlie arrived, he became the director of a pre-existing program called ROPE, Randolph Outdoor Program of Education. And it was a neat concept. Near the end of the year, when the weather warmed, some of the staff would take the 7th, 8th, and 9th grade out into the woods and live there with them and conduct outdoor classes in things like wildflower identification, wild edibles, writing poetry, flight from trees, building and repairing stone walls. That was my specialty. It was a neat experience and very intense. That was because we actually borrowed tents from the National Guard and lived in them. Bob gets it. That's a Charlieism. It was an intense experience, get it? Never met a pun he didn't like. But Charlie decided that he was going to change the tone. The tone of the program when he inherited it was militaristic and hierarchical and bombastic. And he thought that it could be done better, a little more calmly. And I remember how he introduced it to the kids the first time he spoke to them. He had a piece of rope, short piece of rope, like this. Gave it a big tug again. He said, "See how hard that is to break that?" And then in front of them, he started disassembling it, pulling the strands apart, until he got to an individual strand, popped it, broke it, and said, "See how easy that was? That's how it is with rope. If we all stick together, we can create an unmistakably strong experience." And I wondered how that was going to go, given the history that he was working against with noise and bombast and yelling. And then I realized he was speaking so quietly that I could only barely hear him. I had to listen really, really hard to hear what he was saying. And then I looked around and I noticed all the kids were doing the same thing. There was not a noise to be heard. It worked out perfectly. No worries. Rope became an unforgettable experience. And by that, I want to make clear, I don't mean that Charlie was incapable of putting on a good mad when he thought the occasion called for it. It was just that mad wasn't his relationship with the world. It wasn't his way of engaging the world. I became a member of Bethany Church about 10 years after I met Charlie. That was a move that was life-changing for me, absolutely transforming. And in the due course of time, maybe 3 years ago, 2.5, it's getting hard to keep track of time. 4 members of Bethany, including Charlie and I, became participants in a Bethany men's talk group. All of us were either in or approaching our 70s, and we decided to get together once a month at either the Wee Bird or the Wit and Grit, local eateries here, to chat about, well, whatever was on our minds on that particular day. So we talked about things of interest to us, books we'd read, movies we'd seen, sometimes politics, our kids, our grandchildren especially, the joys and the challenges that come with getting older, like remembering that name that we just couldn't pull up quite from the tip of our tongue. We became kind of like a Bethany version of the old Garrison Keillor show, Prairie Home Companion. The particular creation was Guy Noir, Private Eye, seeking the answers to life's persistent questions. Once a month we met, we talked, we enjoyed each other's companies, and we enjoyed each other's disgruntlements and unhappinesses and happinesses and insights. Last autumn, I think it was maybe during our December gathering, we noted that something was up, something was wrong with Charlie. He was losing weight, didn't feel very good, something was going on with him. Our next meeting in October, it was disclosed that Charlie's diagnosis and prognosis were very, very grim. Tough days lay ahead. I think that was the last time we all met together. The following month, Charlie was able to join us only by the wonders of Zoom, not able to attend the actual meeting at the Wit and Grit. And that was the last time I saw him or spoke with him, even on a TV screen. He was still smiling. He was still full of humor. Still had that spark in his eye, seemingly, somehow, at peace with what was happening to him, the way things were going. I'd known him for nearly 50 years. The following month, he was too ill to attend even a Zoom session, and shortly after that, as you know, he passed away. So I look back over the 50 years that I knew Charlie as my friend, I remain awed by his ability to live at peace with himself in the times in which he lived. Times, once again, that seemed full of chaos and hatred and anger and confusion. Where did this come from, this equanimity that I've spoken of and which others have already spoken of? Where did this come from, this assurance that things are going to be okay, that things are going to work out? Well, I don't know. But I think maybe a clue can be found in the Apostle Paul's letter to the Romans, chapter 8, verses 38 and 39. The Apostle Paul wrote these words, "For I am persuaded that neither death nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, nor powers, nor things present, nor things to come, nor height, nor depth, nor any other creature shall be able to separate us from the love of God." Charlie knew and believed that he was loved, and he spent a lifetime passing that love around and on to everybody who knew him. Near the end of the Desiderata, the author offers these words of advice. He says, "And whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. Therefore, be at peace. For with all its shams, drudgery, and broken dreams, it is still a beautiful world. Be cheerful. Strive to be happy." I wish I could believe that and accept that as Charlie seemed to. Personally, I think the universe could learn quite a bit by sitting down with us at the next meeting of the Guy Noir Monthly Discussion Group. We might have some ideas to offer about how things might evolve differently, by which I mean better. Charlie's journey on Earth ended a few months ago. He's on a different path now. Perhaps somewhere in the future, hopefully in the quite distant future, our paths maybe will cross again. And I shall attempt to go placidly into that future. In the meantime, I'm really grateful for the time we had on Earth together.
Hello all. I'm very lucky to have been a student in a way of Charlie's on this very stage. I'm very honored to be presenting the next song. This song is derived from the musical play Rochester Light and Power by other Redwoods, Dick and Dorothy Robson. It has been recrafted especially for Charlie. The words of the song are a paraphrase from a quote by Elizabeth Cady Stanton, who late in her life realized that her generation would not see the fruits of its striving for women's suffrage. The song says, "We are sowing winter wheat. The coming spring will wake its sleep, and then in time, when we are gone, other hands than ours will reap." Charlie, as a friend and as a caring human, but especially as an educator, ever illuminated the faith of a planter of winter wheat.
Sowing winter wheat, the coming spring will wake its seed, and then in time when we are gone, other hands than ours will reap.
Those of you who know me know that my preferred location is over there, behind the stage. I spent the ages of roughly 14 to 23 working backstage in theater, first here at the high school in Chandler, and then in Chicago. I learned to love theater through Charlie's joy and the magic of the process, but I never intended to be on this side of the curtain. In late February, when Charlie asked me if I would consider speaking at his service, I immediately said, yes, of course. I was just as quickly filled with doubt upon accepting. Why would Charlie ask me? And why in the world did I say yes? I've spent the last few months revisiting precious memories and repeating many previous conversations with Charlie. As there always has been, it's been a mix of joy and frustration as I've wrestled with another one of Charlie's crazy ideas. In fairness, I pitched him a whole lot of crazy ideas over the years, and he always responded with enthusiasm. When I decided to start a theater company my sophomore year of college and host it here at Chandler, Charlie was our fiercest advocate. He volunteered his home address for the fundraising letters, and his unwavering faith in our project made that adventure possible. As I've reflected on those questions of why me and why did I agree, I've realized they have the same answer. Charlie asked me because he believed in me. And I said yes, because I could still feel that belief through email and through the years. Charlie, this is the hardest thing I've ever done. Author Rachel Naomi Remen says, anything good you've ever been given is yours forever. I've come to realize that the confidence Charlie had in me is mine forever. If you're here today, I think you have also felt the power of Charlie's belief in you. I hope you know that he still believes in you. He's been proud of you and rooting for you this whole time. Charlie showed us how to live and love with grace through his whole life. We will always have in our hearts Charlie's great laugh from the front row of our successes and joys. His faith in us set the stage, and he will always be there in the wings to watch us soar. I'd like to share one of my favorite poems in closing. You don't need to memorize or explicate it. There won't be an exam. I hope you will let it wash over you as you thank Charlie's presence in your own way and know that all that he gave you is yours forever. This is Late Fragment by Raymond Carver. And did you get what you wanted from this life even so? I did. And what did you want? To call myself beloved, to feel myself beloved on the earth. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Krista Worm, and I taught with Charlie at the Sharon Academy for the entire time that he was there and learned with him. Preparing to speak for this service felt a lot like writing a recommendation letter for a student. How do I, in 2 to 3 minutes, I was not given the whole time, in 2 to 3 minutes, how do I articulate the uniqueness that is Charlie McMeekin and allow his particular blend of magic and mess to be understood? In many ways, I don't know Charlie as well as many of you. I don't know the story of when his heart was first broken, where to find a spatula in his kitchen without opening lots of drawers, or even what some of his favorite songs are. I was pretty sure he had a brother. Jim, it's so nice to see you. But so many of the decisions that make up our lives, that we share with our partners, our brothers, our children, our dearest friends, I couldn't tell you. However, I knew Charlie from the time we spent together pursuing a shared passion, so it's not a leap for me to say that I knew him deeply. I know that he wore a different tie every single day of the school year with his button-up shirt to demonstrate his commitment to and respect for his students, their families, his colleagues, and the profession, even though his shirt might be misbuttoned and was almost always partially untucked. Oh, sorry. I know that he took notes during staff meetings to keep himself from talking too much, putting into action his ever-growing awareness of his power as an experienced white male teacher, and his need to work at stepping back and creating space for other voices. And I know that he embodied what it means to be an educator. The phrase, "Charlie's a gem," is a little too trite and a little too precious to be used unironically about Charlie. But it's almost perfect. He wasn't a gem, but rather a prism. I have a crystal on my kitchen windowsill, and every morning when the sun is just right and we're all still home, we cheer, "The rainbows are here," and then we all shuffle around and be like, "I have one in my eye, or in my nostril, or in my mouth." It's one of those principles of physics that still has mysticism in it, and Kermit's singing helps, of course. As an educator and as a man, Charlie saw individuals around him and allowed, or urged, or forced, or beckoned them, us, into our own explosion and expression of light. Charlie knew and believed deeply that everyone had something to teach him. We all felt that inherent respect that underlies that belief. And this is what I think came alive for Charlie and for all of us who shared time with him at TSA. He was allowed, encouraged, and even required to respect his collaborators, even though they were punks of 14, 15, 16, 18 years old. And he did this in a few reliable ways. He allowed his imperfections to hang out, thereby inviting his students and colleagues to take risks. Auditions for the all-school musical were open so that everyone could see the talent displayed and understand the subsequent casting choices. He loved to get butt ugly with his feedback for students and colleagues and lay out the inevitable consequences for actions. Presentations not practiced, lines not learned, feelings not shared. He also relentlessly not only identified others' beauty, courage, and compassion, but shared his acknowledgement of it and made the time to do so. So many one-lined emails I have from him highlighting a perspective that I shared or an action that I took that stood out to him. During interim rehearsals, he encouraged anyone to shout positive feedback from the audience. The more specific, the better. The gym at TSA and then the stage here would ring out with comments like, "I see your smile, I love that interaction you're doing back there." Of course, Chucky would come out too at times and lay into anyone who was late to rehearsal, not taking it seriously, or farting around in the back line of the choral finale. He marveled at the TSA supply closet. It wasn't very full, but it was always open to anyone who had a key, which was really anybody who asked. He wrote a letter on my behalf in order to waive the requirement for a home visit so that I could adopt my son. Charlie led from behind, not in the Duke of Plaza Toro way, but after the fashion of Nelson Mandela. who said, "It's better to lead from behind and to put others in front, especially when you celebrate victory or nice things occur. You take the front line when there is danger. Then people will appreciate your leadership." This was most obvious during the interim, but it was always part of his style, as we're hearing today. Much like Dorothy Scarecrow, who was there the whole time, stuffing the straw back in, hollering at evil apple trees, but not ever wearing the ruby slippers. He invited our light in and offered us ways to shine it out. This year has been hard for me, hard for many of us, and I am so grateful to Charlie for helping me remember that. When I pointed out the little snow caps that looked like gnome hats on the shriveled up crabapple trees of the walk into school this winter, and a student looked at me and said, "I don't even know how you saw that." I will miss you, friend, and I know that because of you, I know better how to shine my own light. Thank you.
What a wonderful celebration. Oh my gosh. I'm Sue Robato from Rochester. Charlie had a long reach, and I've had the pleasure of singing with Charlie many times. He really loved this song that we're going to be hearing very soon. And many of you know it, so please join in. And if you don't know it, you will very soon. This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me, no, no. This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me, no, no. This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. The world didn't give it, the world can't take it away. This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me, no, no. This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me, no, no. This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. The world didn't give it, the world can't take it away. This love that I have, the world didn't give it to me, no, no. This love that I have, the world didn't give it to me, no, no. This love that I have, the world didn't give it to me. The world didn't give it, the world can't take it away. This peace that I have, the world didn't give it to me, no, no. This peace that I have, the world didn't give it to me, no, no. This peace that I have, the world didn't give it to me. The world didn't give it, the world can't take it away. This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me, no, no. This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me, no, no. This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. The world didn't give it, the world can't take it away.
What a wonderful group. We're in trouble because I'm beginning off script. I wasn't going to share this story, but I have to now after hearing all this stuff about Charlie's drama. Thanks, Charlotte. How many saw Adaptation, the play given at Randolph Union High School? Not very many here. I knew Charlie in 1976 when I first came to town with Kathy. And Becky and Charlie and I have been good friends ever since. And Adaptation was one of the very earliest productions that Charlie, and I think Shosh was with him then. She can share the blame? No, Charlie was all alone. She came in to rescue him from moments like this. Adaptation was a play that was given at the high school stage. If you imagine the curtains closed behind the people that are on the stage, and it's a game show. And the game show is Adaptation. And now here's the rub. The sequence for the play was a game board. And Charlie had taken the game board and put it on the curtain behind the players. You could tell where they were. And we got about halfway through this show, and one of the players got into a tape loop, said a line that took the entire play back 4 spaces on the game board that we were looking at on the wall. And we were stuck in that tape loop for over a half an hour. That's not an exaggeration. And the game show leader would say, "It's Adaptation!" And then he went on, and that was the line that cued you that you were going back into hell. We all had to learn to adapt that night. And I turned to Kathy after about 35 minutes of this, and we were over an hour and 35 minutes into the production at this point. I said, "Kathy, none of us are going to get out of here alive." And that is just the point. None of us do. And Charlie never directed a play that had a more powerful and more wonderful impact upon me than that stupid little play from almost 40 years ago, 50 years ago. I remember it as if it happened last night. It was a failure. It was a complete failure. And you know, who among us walks with no limp? Am I not a failure? Yes, I am. But it's all grace. Every bit of it is grace. It's all wonderful. So thank you for that lesson. Charlie McMeekin, how do you heat a home? Well, first you find a good woodlot, and then you buy it. And then you select trees for the next year's heat. You sharpen your chainsaw. You fell the trees, you limb them, you cut the logs to length, you split them, you cart them, you stack them, and then you wait for a year. For a year. Each step takes time, which is good. Charlie loved those woods. More about that in a bit. Charlie, how do you build community? Well, you could begin by running a laundromat. Run it for no money. No money's a good place to start. And then get a bunch of old idealistic fools to climb into this ship and volunteer for no money along with you. Keep the doors open 24/7, 365 days a year, 366 on leap year. Why? Well, some folks work odd hours. We have to be available. Some folks have an emergency need, or they're in crisis. Their well's dry, they're out of work, they're living rough, very rough. They're down on their luck. They're stuck in a life loop, a of adaptation. And let's keep it warm, and let's keep it friendly. And let's keep it clean. Let's make people want to be there. It should have a clean bathroom, because Randolph doesn't have any other bathroom that's open to everyone 24 hours a day. And people need a bathroom. Who knows? Maybe someone will need shelter on a dark and freezing night. Maybe a safe space to put a good lock on that bathroom door wouldn't be a bad idea. And let's keep a big jar of quarters in the office in case anybody needs them, because maybe they lost them in the machine, or maybe they didn't have enough money to run the dryer, or maybe they just needed money. That's okay. Hand those quarters out. I'll refill it. Hand them out. And then, funny thing happened. People did start to use it for more than just doing laundry. We had some regulars. And Charlie found it necessary to get involved in Capstone, which helps with housing, and to volunteer at the food shelf because people needed to know how to get to the food shelf, and that opened up a dialogue of communication. He said, it wouldn't be bad for some of you to get involved in these things too, because making referrals to those who need this help is really, really important. Some folks need food or health care or housing, and they need a loft. And so Charlie wrote that infamous October surprise letter, or whatever month it was, and the churches began to open up rooms for emergency housing. Get involved, he would say to us. Grab a mop, make a bed, prepare a meal. There's no action motivated by love that is small. Charlie knew that. Each leaf on the tree matters. May only be one leaf, but every leaf matters. Every tendril in the root structure of a redwood forest matters. No, here's another bonus. Work for no money means that the laundromat makes money. And you know what we can do with that money? We can give it to the arts. And speaking of support, what did we get out of it? Well, we got the most amazing notes and emails and attaboys and attagals. We got them often, and they were filled with puns, bad puns. He let us know, he let his volunteers know that he loved them. He let them know who they were. You are beloved. It's simple, really. Beloved. We all are. No one should be unbeloved or thought to be unbeloved or feel unbeloved. None of us, no one out there. And we can't all have a woodlot and a home to warm. But we're all beloved. Now I'm really on script because I'm pulling from my notes here, and I'm not going to read the whole thing. This is a talk that Charlie gave at a Bethany Church retreat in 2001, taking on the aspect of a Garrison Keeler to the members and friends of Bethany Church. Just to give you an idea of the tone. It's been a busy week here in Hoverton, a town whose name was acronymically inspired by its earliest settlers who took the H from heart, the O from of, and the Ver from Vermont. Hoverton, a peaceful little village nestled in the valley of the White River in the heart of the Green Mountains. Well, I'm going to go straight to the end. where Charlie seemed to write some words for his own service of celebration. And Charlie, what should I tell? What should I tell the people who are gathered at Chandler Hall? Tell them that this is holy ground. Tell them that life is lived on the shore, between where the land meets water and where the earth meets sky, stitched together by a falling star. The margin where life encounters death, intentions together with love. No, a border where life encounters death, the border where a young man meets a young woman, knitting their intentions together with love. It's lived in the space where summer meets fall, in the space between a new job and retirement, between entering and leaving, between weekend and weekday. Our job is to live, to participate, to celebrate on those fragile shorelines, to hear our name called out by a loving God. Tell them this is holy ground. And tell them whether your time comes soon or late, as you leave this holy ground, may the love of God surround you. May you go with peace around you as you leave this holy ground. God bless you, Charlie, and God bless all of us. And now I'd like to ask the singers for a song that Kathy composed. Oh, and thank you, Dorothy, for that most amazing piece that we heard earlier. A song that Kathy composed. It's in two parts. And the singers who are up here on the stage have all sung with Charlie over the years. I know you won't believe it when you see us. We all look so young and vital. But we've all sung with Charlie over the years, and I get to sing a solo in this. I get to sing a solo next to Mary Bonhag, who's here graciously helping out today. She's the only singer who didn't sing with Charlie. I don't believe she did. But boy, can she sing. It's hard to sing a solo when you're on stage next to a voice like hers. And I never did consider myself a soloist. I considered myself a good bathtub tenor, bathtub baritone. And when you're singing next to another really good voice, you can feel like you've really got a powerful voice. And I always stood next to Charlie when I sang. We would sing solos together, and sometimes Denny Borchard would join us. We'd sing as a cluster. And those redwoods together, well, we were tall trees. Well, I lost Charlie. I felt like, here's my cue. When I lost Charlie, I felt like I lost the Twin Tower. And I'll sing without him today, but I want you to imagine him singing right there with me. And you're going to sing with him too. The first part of this song begins in the woods. It begins in the woods that Charlie loves so much. He loved those woods and that woodlot so much that he took maple trees out of the woods and brought them down and planted them around his house on Highland Avenue and gave them to all his friends and planted them for them if they didn't want to plant them themselves. He loved the sugar maples. He loved them so much that he left that house on Highland Avenue that he loved so much, and he loved painting it every summer. He left that house and moved up into that woodlot so that he could be among his beloved trees. And the trees spoke to him. And this piece begins in the woods with Mary singing. And she's really singing Charlie's song. I want you to take this piece of music right out of your program. It's a leaflet right in the center. Take a look at it. It begins with something that's not written down there, but the text is in your program. And you can see that you've got a music and you've got the text. And you can see that on the right-hand side in the insert, in the middle of your program, it says, "In the midst of trees." And those are the words that Mary will begin singing. And then it talks about meeting God in the trees, which Charlie surely did. And then we go into hope bringer, joy maker, justice worker. Kathy has taken the metaphors for God that were most inspired by her feelings about Charlie These are all metaphors for God that were embodied by the life of service that Charlie led. And so we're going to sing those metaphors, and then there's a wonderful kind of a soprano part that Mary sings in the middle of it. And so we're going to sing it 4 times. Well, we're not going to sing it 4 times. We're going to hear it 4 times. Mary's going to be, I'm going to be the first time through, and then Mary's going to come in and sing the second verse. And then we're going to come in together as a chorus up on the stage. And then I'm going to ask you all to stand. Yes, you two are going to get to experience the joy that I experienced about 5 minutes ago when I stood up over there and nearly fell down because of the pain in my legs. These 73-year-old pins. You ready? Let's do it.
Strengthener of courage, challenger in our apathy.
Oh God, you bring our hearts with song. You walk with us in our grief.
Friend of the whole, justice worker, carpenter of our soul.
I've said to people in the last few months that we lost my dad too quickly and too slowly at the same time. It's a gift for him that it was as quick as it was, and in a way a gift for us because we knew what was coming. We could say what needed to be said and say it to him instead of just to you and to each other. And so when I thought about what I wanted to try to say here, I flashed back to one of the first nights that we all came back up to the house. And I think Hannah, the wise one among us, was insistent that as much as we were enjoying each other's company and spending time together, that we take some time one evening to acknowledge why we were there and tell each other and tell my dad some stories and some memories. It's something I'm really glad we did. Appreciate you suggesting. And kind of inspired what I wanted to share today. I think one of my earliest memories of my dad is I drive across the country. I'm young enough I can probably barely tie my shoes, and he agrees to drive a moving van to California to help a friend who's relocating, and what makes more sense than not just bringing his firstborn son along, but asking him for advice and input on the route. And at the time, you know, the magic of being a young child, of course you're gonna ask me, I'm half of this, right? Like I have opinions, I have thoughts, I wanna go to Niagara Falls, let's do it. And I remember really distinctly him laying out a choice for me as we looked at a map. We had just seen Niagara Falls and said, so from here we kind of have two choices. We can drive across the north of the country, or we can kind of dip south and we can go across the south of the country. If we go across the north, you know, here are some of the things we'll see. If we go across the south, here are some of the things we'll see that way. If we do one though, we won't see the other. What do you want to do? And I think those of you who, I'll digress a little bit. I think what I realize in speaking about my dad is that I have a less unique perspective as his firstborn son than you might think. We share an awful lot more than we don't, especially if you were his student, if you worked with him, if you were directed by him. I shared those experiences too, and I think the magic of what he did was he asked me my thoughts and didn't have an agenda that I could tell. I don't know whether he wanted to go to the Grand Canyon or whether he wanted to go to Mount Rushmore, but we went to Mount Rushmore. And there was quite literally no looking back, but I felt like a partner on that drive. And I think at every step in my life with my dad, I felt like a partner. I felt like he had a real gift for seeing the smallest, the weakest, the youngest, the dumbest, the most confused of us as full people, and really valuing what we might add to the conversation. And that's something that I, with all humility, am really happy to share with so many people. I think the other thing that was on my mind and what I wanted to say today was, for someone who was a teacher, for someone who was the presence that he was, for someone who was my father, he didn't give me an awful lot of advice, and I really value that. I think if you want someone to ignore you, if you want someone to ignore you, start with the words, let me give you some advice. As someone who tries to sneak advice into others for a living, I have learned that lesson pretty hard and pretty well. But the closest thing that I remember him saying to me to advice was just a reminder that love is a verb. And I think a lot of the words we look at in our lives as nouns or as adjectives, he lived as verbs, whether it was to love, to teach, to thank. Yeah, and I'm, again, very grateful and very humbled to share something so similar with so many people in this room. Thank you so much for being here.
Webster's Dictionary defines death as a permanent cessation of all vital. No, I'm kidding. That's not how I'm going to start your eulogy, Dad. For my entire childhood, for the whole time that he and I lived together under the same roof, for those first 18, but really more like 22 plus years, he had stacks of schoolwork and papers just throughout the house, sometimes widely distributed, and sometimes more concentrated to his space, which was the dining room table. You see, we didn't eat in the dining room. We ate in the kitchen, except for this one Easter. I remember I'd come home from college. I remember the Fowlers being there. I remember putting on Bella Fleck's Tale of the Acoustic Planet, Volume 2, the Bluegrass Sessions. Great album, always a solid pick. I digress. Albeit intentional, written and rehearsed, and it's all down on this piece of paper, so is digress even the right word? Or does the word itself imply unintentional wandering? Dad? Damn, right. Anyway, from the time I could read, I would leaf through his papers, reading essays and seeing my dad's corrections, his comments in the margins, and he was not a fan of the dictionary definition intro. He would tear that shit apart. It took me a while to realize how cool my dad was. Maybe not until I was in college. I mean, I grew up with him. I assume he was like the first or second person I was introduced to, and so he was just always there. These last few months have been the first I've known of a world without him. The same can be said for Hannah, for Jesse, for Jim, for my childhood friends. None of us remember meeting Charlie. He'd just always been around. And when I started writing this eulogy, I found myself becoming highly entertained by the thought of meeting this guy for the first time. You lay eyes on this big, tall dude, big round belly, kind of that pregnant belly that came out front, not so much to the side. Big, thick glasses, big eyes. You know those eyes. Everyone here knows those eyes. So intense that they'd get all wide, maybe tilt his head, shake it a little bit, bring a finger up. It all started with those eyes. Later in life, you'd see those eyes anytime he went to look at something, anytime he went to read, whether it was a paper or his phone. He'd kind of do this, and then he'd do this. Sometimes it'd open his jaw. Apparently that helped. I remember seeing those eyes the night before he died. It was like 2:30, 3 in the morning. None of us should have been awake. And he was, so we were. And Hannah was there, and Keely was there, and I was there. And in this moment of clarity, he gets all big, and he looks at us, and he goes, "So, what now?" He also had this big voice. Dude was loud, especially at lacrosse games. Good God. "Come on, Randolph, let's go, guys. Let's get a stop. Let's go. Come on, Isaac. Get him, JK." Relentless. For the entire game. I remember this one game, I'm standing there with my defender. My defender's just staring at him on the sideline. And he turns to me and he's like, "Who is that guy?" Some parent, I think. There were maybe a few more times in my childhood where I was mildly embarrassed by things he would say or do. He was my 9th grade English teacher. He was my 12th grade AP Lit teacher. He would teach us the Bible, Adam and Eve, the original sin, Romeo and Juliet, interpreting and reinterpreting the many sexual and crude innuendos of Shakespeare. He was my drama director, as he was for a lot of you guys. That's why a lot of you are here. And it was the winter of my sophomore year in high school, and my parents were going to make me do something. They wouldn't let me do nothing. They didn't care what it was as long as I was staying busy. And so after scoring a whopping 3 points during my 7th grade basketball season, it was a pretty sweet baseline 2 down the road in Bethel. And then I went 1 for 2 from the line here in Randolph. And so having officially retired from basketball, I decided I'd try out for the winter play. My dad and Sharon Borchard were directing the musical Fame. So Drew Davis and I spent some time during lunch and in between periods and maybe a study hall writing a rap that we'd use as our audition. And I still remember my last line. Drew was beatboxing and I crossed my arms and looked out at my dad and I said, "My dad's the director, he owes me a part." And a part I got. Cast as Montgomery, the redheaded kid who struggled with his homosexuality and had to do a choreographed dance with Melanie Ingalls to a hip-hop version of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. Well played, Dad. Sharon. And one piece of advice that my dad gave me as director was that if you're ever on stage and think you look cool or feel like you look cool, you probably look like an idiot. Life advice that we would all do well to carry outside of the theater. And I doubt he walked through life thinking he looked cool, or even caring if he did, which is kind of the ultimate boss cool move right there. Now, my dad was quick to recognize and celebrate the accomplishments of others. And there were 2 things in particular in theater that he especially loved. There was standing room only and standing ovation. And I remember that anxious backstage energy before a play when my dad would get a look out at the audience and then it'd turn back to us and be like, "Standing room only, guys, standing room only." And then there was the standing O. He really enjoyed that one. And the crowd would rise to their feet and they'd turn around all wide-eyed, look out at us. "Standing room only, guys." Or excuse me, standing ovation, guys. Standing O. And with that, I'd like to give my dad his own standing ovation.
Wow, I really said that I wanted to go third, and now I have no idea why. Thank you both for setting the bar so high. It was remarkably easy to be embarrassed by my dad, as both of my brothers have spoken to. We're talking about the guy who picked out his clothes in the dark, the teacher who carried his school supplies in a milk crate, and would spontaneously burst into song. He was the dad who did daily errands to town in the most inefficient ways. So yeah, it was really easy to be embarrassed by my dad. And yet my dad was never embarrassed by me, and not for a lack of material, but I've always known that my dad deeply loves me. And after reading many of your notes, I know that you feel the same. My dad had a gift for seeing people. He wore his heart on his sleeve, and what a gift that was. I haven't had to dig deep to find an abundance of love that he left in his wake. So many notes full of words of affirmation and pride. As I grew up, I slowly started to see the things that I was embarrassed by from a different perspective. He refused to give a shit about what he looked like, and instead wanted to be wearing the t-shirts from musicals that he loved and ties from people that he loved. And he burst into song because he was so wildly full of joy. And efficiency just wasn't on his radar, which more and more feels like a really radical act. He couldn't be rushed, he was present where he was, and he wasn't fussed about what was next. I still couldn't tell you why he carried his school supplies in a milk crate. There was something really magical about who my dad was. And I've never been in a time of my life where verb tense has felt so confusing. Who my dad is, who my dad was, has or had, loved or loves. And I think about what my dad would say, both as an English teacher and as a poetic soul. And a quick search of my Gmail surfaced many email exchanges, many of them also one-liners, and a lot of them where he was just sharing his love. Here's an excerpt from one in 2009, shout out to Ohio. Hi, sweetheart, this is Dad, writing to you from my office at the McDonald's on Cable Road in beautiful suburban Lima, Ohio. I come here for breakfast because they have Wi-Fi and they're cheaper than Bob Evans. Already so my dad. He goes on to share about his time in his hometown and ends the email with, I love you beyond words and think of you more than you know. Love, Dad, XOXOXO. Not loved or loves, just love. My dad lived with so much love. I adore my dad, and the thought of moving through this life without my embarrassing, powerful, and beautiful father is quite daunting. So, I'll move through it as a proud daughter, proud of who my dad was and is, and proud of the ways that he lived and lives. So let us all see ourselves and others as my dad sees us, not as embarrassing, but as people of possibility. Risk takers, beloved people, and one-of-a-kind humans. Let us love deeply and generously. One of my dad's many gifts was how he would gather the 120 plus youth cast members of the summer musicals out on the lawn across the way and lead us in a rallying time before a performance. He would remind us of the possibility and magic available to us in that moment. He told us that there will never be another performance like the one we were about to have, and so to give it all as our gift to those who came to watch us. To close the circle, he led us in a call and response to the quote written in your program on this beautiful postcard made by my sister. When we asked my dad about what he wanted in his memorial, he was clear about a few things, and this was one of them. So let's do this for my dad. And I'm gonna invite any of my family that would like to join me up on stage. What we're gonna do is, basically the only words you need to say are now, here, and to make others happy. So we'll read the first part of it, and then you will finish each of those sentences. And let's do it with some gusto, because we're talking about Charlie McMeekin. Yeah, if you want to stand, if you want to dance, if you want to do whatever. All right, ready? Ready. The time to be happy
Is now.
The place to be happy
Is here.
And the way to be happy is to make others happy. Thank you.
Well, Charlie, you packed the house. The reviews are in, and they are spectacular. Charlie's been nudging me a little bit. I think the reception could use a little direction, so to make it go as smoothly as the first part of this went. But I also have to do something first, and that is one of the things that we love so much about Charlie is that he totally understood that some of the most important parts of any production are the ones you don't see. Without them, the whole thing doesn't work, and they're often not recognized. That happened again today. And I just want to take 2 seconds to say a huge thank you to Seth Stoddard, Charlie and Becky. Seth put an incredible amount of work into making this go as smoothly as it did. So this is to make the next part go a little more smoothly. About 500 people here. So very quickly, 500 people spending 1 minute with the family works out to about 9 hours. You see the problem. Okay, so enough said about that, but if you've got a wonderful story about Charlie that you want to tell them, Cliff Notes version, please. Or save it for the dairy aisle at Shaw's. Wait, scratch that. Produce aisle right in front of the avocados. There's usually some extra room. So I would gather there if you want to tell Becky when you run into her in front of the avocados. So to kind of help folks, if you are not going to the reception, I'd like to keep that far right aisle open. So if you're in that section and you're going in the far section, you're going to the reception, kind of come into that aisle. And that way, if you do need to slip out, you'll have a clear path out that far aisle. Let's see, the family is I'm going to have them right inside the doors to the Esther Mesh room on the left. They'll be kind of there. And when you get ready to exit, if the stairs are packed up, go clear through the Esther Mesh room to the back, through the kitchen. There's restrooms in that room, incidentally, if you need them. And if you go to the next room, there you will find the elevator and a stairway to take you down, so you don't have to swim upstream down that through a bunch of people. And then finally, just in front of the entrance to the Esther Mesh room, there is a huge basket where you can leave cards, and there are a bunch of these and some pens there if you want to write a quick note. Or if you don't want to have to share your story in the produce aisle at Shaw's, you can put it on one of these. Put it in the basket. Thank you all for being here. We are not going to dismiss you row by row. I think that would be silly. There's too many people. So feel free to just migrate on up. Thank you.
there and then get into a car? I don't know what cars were. Well, unless we could put three in the back seat of our car. Yeah, it's a little tight, but I think that would be better than taking three cars. Yeah, we can. That's what I was asking. Yeah. If we need to. No, we'll pick you up south. Okay. Yeah, that's fine.